Welcome back to Prep Recruiting Insider, PRI here at NOLA Motorsports Park in Avondale. I'm the host of PRI, your coach, Rick Gailey, along with our Prep Recruiting Insider, Renee Nato. And Renee, we are joined today by Dr. Tony Melito, mental game expert with Winning Actions. Tony, thanks for being here today. It's always a pleasure.
You're welcome. It's always good to be with you guys.
Tony, everybody's seeking a complicated solution on to be the best that you can be, but sometimes simplicity is the best path to follow.
I would agree. The saying goes, follow the process. And what's important is that athletes need to know, what that process is. Being able to be in the present moment, being able to look at the different skills involved in their position, being able to focus on the process of executing those skills, and it's one play at a time, it's one hit at a time. So the process is so important, and it's so fundamental and really simple. But if you follow that process, then everything else is going to take care of itself.
And Tony, it's no secret right now in Louisiana, there's a lot of turmoil going around, a lot of major programs. When you see what's happening with the Saints, with LSU, Tulane, the coaches are in, the coaches are out, the ADs are in and out, and it really affects players because there's a lot of noise, we call it, going on. How do you train your athletes to take care of their business, because they still have to be focused, they still have to take care of their own careers and their own learning? Tell us how you train your athletes to be able to tone out the noise and still perform.
You're right. I think it's important that they shut out the noise. They tune it out. However, how do you go about doing that? What would that look like? When you look at an organization, whether it's a family, a business, or an athletic team, regarding the coaching situation right now in the state, there's a lot of different contexts you could look at it. A player needs to perform as if their head coach is still going to be with them, or their defensive coordinator is still going to be with them. Now, if that's not the case, then things shift. Then players need to be aware of, well, it's okay for them to be loyal to their coaches, even if they're not coming back. What's important is that team cohesion, being consistent with their routines that got them to where they are anyway, to where they're successful, and be able to take care of their own individual needs. And so I think that's true in the family of divorce, in a business, or in athletics. But again, it's about going back to the process. How can they focus on things they can control? Control the controllables. Let go of anything that's outside of yourself, the things you have no control over. So they have to focus on what's relevant to them. They have to focus in their own meetings, their own practice, their work ethic, their attitude. It's so fundamentally, it's about always getting back to what you can control.
Tony, football right now, we're in a season, but so many individuals put pressure on themselves to be the best, to get to the dome, to win a state championship. But there's also family and peer pressure, and it can be unbelievable sometimes. All that pressure, self-imposed and otherwise, can just be overbearing.
Yes. All that pressure, all those expectations that parents, fans put on these players, it really undermines, it's an undercurrent to their confidence. It really creates a lot of self-doubt because there's so much pressure that's being put on them to be successful. And when that doesn't happen, then they left feeling frustrated, and angry, and disappointed. So, family members and fans and other people maybe think they're doing something positive by encouraging them, telling them you're going to be a college prospect, you're going to go to college. But in a real way, sometimes these strict expectations, instead of following the process and focusing on the skills that get them to that next level, that's what's important. Otherwise, they're undermining their own confidence, and these other people are really can be working against their own best interest for their son or their friend.
I find that interesting, the way you're describing outside expectations, because coming from an education background, we hear from I call them academians, okay? They're pseudo-academicians who keep saying, you've got to have high expectations and all that, but the expectations have got to be part of the process. It can't be artificially put on players or put on students. It's got to come from the process.
You're right. It's all about the process. And the strict expectations, what I'm talking about, are judgments that you're placing on your performance, the way you think your performance should look or feel. And if your focus is nothing about, it's all about outcome and stats and wins, it's going to take you away from the process, from focusing on what's task relevant so that you can be successful. And when you do that, everything else takes care of itself. But the expectations I'm talking about, it's just not the same thing as goals. It's not the same thing as goal setting. But it's all about these strict demands and these judgments that you're placing on yourself that puts an incredible amount of pressure on any athlete, on any student, any situation where they could crumble underneath it.
What are you encountering now that maybe 5, 6, 8, 10, 15 years ago you were not, problem-wise, with individuals?
Well, I think their level of stress and anxiety is really high, before performance and while they're performing. A lot of the outside pressures, from family or their goals about wanting, to play college ball. So again, it's going back to those expectations. There's a greater expectation on these athletes today than in years past.
And with the playoffs going on now, semifinals in select, quarterfinals in non-select, there's a couple of different fears that go into play. One is fear of failure. We're pretty familiar with that.
Yes.
But fear of success is just as prevalent or just as dangerous as fear of failure.
Yes. Fear of success is when, you're at that point where now the microscope is on you. You're underneath that microscope and everyone's looking at you because you reach a certain level of success. And then the pressure, what's also put on an athlete is this: now I have to be a role model. Everyone's looking to me to be that role model, to be that team leader, and I don't want that limelight. Or another thing that can be problematic with the fear of success is that now I have to stay on top of my game, and that puts so much pressure on me. And so those type of fears that's linked with the fear of success creates a lot of pressure. And again, it works against performance. Because when you have that negative thinking and you're doubting yourself and you don't want to be in the limelight, well, that's going to impact what's going on in your body in terms of muscle tension, and that all impacts your performance, your timing, your coordination, your movements, and so on.
You coached under legend Bobby Conlon back in the day. Had to be unique.
Yes.
On the staff with Coach Conlon.
He was an incredible guy. Him and Chubby Marks, those are two great guys. But I think Bobby was also somewhat ahead of his time. He was a big, Alabama fan, with Bear Bryant. He loved Bear Bryant. Those two were like, to me, it seems like they were brothers, meant for each other. But Bob used to always say, where the mind leads, the body follows. So he was kind of ahead of his time with the mental game. I remember one time he took us into the gym. We lying down on some wrestling mats in the gym at Brother Martin, and we were listening to a tape, a motivational tape. This is back in the 70s. So it's like, I thought he was just ahead of his time regarding the mental game.
Right. Well, that's Dr. Tony Melito. Go to winningactions.com and find out his contact information. It will be well worth your while. Thank you, Doctor. Appreciate it so much.
Thank you, Rick and Renee.
This is Prep Recruiting Insider, PRI, here at NOLA Motorsports Park in Avondale.